Hello, and thank you for joining us here for Cherry Blossom Home Edition. The Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival takes place every year, the last weekend of April, here in Marshfield, Missouri. And it's our mission to preserve American history and to present it in a unique and interesting way. This year, due to the pandemic, we have moved our festival online and hope that you will enjoy the interviews and panels that we have in store for you. Up next, we have Myra Miller, who is a former recipient of the Ella Dickey Literacy Award, interviewing Dorinda Nicholson. Dorinda, known as the Pearl Harbor Child, has an outstanding story to tell, and Myra, a great appreciator of American history, brings it to life in her interviewing skills.
So today I am Myra Miller, and I'm the moderator for a very lovely person I had the chance of moderating last year on the World War II panel. Now bear with me, Dorinda Makanaonalani Nicholson.
You're speaking Hawaiian. You're bilingual.
The Pearl Harbor Child is the book that she has written, and she won the Ella Dickey Literacy Award, I think the year with me,
2 years.
2 years ago with
2
me.
years ago.
And so we have Dorinda here, and I just love her story. One reason I love her story is because she takes it to the child level, and everyone knows that in today's time, teaching children about World War II is basically difficult if you don't get on their level. And what is so unique about what Dorinda does is she takes her story in her book and relates it to children at school to get them to understand what it was like to be in the center of Pearl Harbor. And the other thing is there's almost an eerie connection here with the situation we're in with the coronavirus, having to be out of school, all these things happening to us. I think this is a perfect time to share your story. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share my screen a little bit, and let me get my screen going here. My screen. Can you see my screen, Dorinda?
Oh, I see my website. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I see you, my website. I see both of them.
So basically, I pulled up your website so people could see a little bit and they can read a little bit. But tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that caused you to write a book, and start into your story. And then when you get to the map section, I will pull up the map. So I think it's helpful to understand where you were located at the time that Pearl Harbor happened. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell your story from this point.
Well, aloha, everybody. And I wish that we were all together with the cherry blossom feeling. But what I decided was, just before this interview, I went to the freezer and I got out my cherry nut ice cream, and I had a half a cup, leveled, and got myself in the mood. So I'm glad that you're joining us during this weekend that is so much the weekend about American history. I have been pleased to have come the last 2 years for my part. And my part is I don't know how many there are of me, because as American children, we are so fortunate. I did a book for National Geographic, and I interviewed kids of my era. And yes, there's a cover, and this cover was in Italy, and you can see the Jeeps leaving there. But if you were in Belgium, oh my gosh, you would have had a Nazi officer living in your house. And my interviewee there said that she and her little sister would go to bed at night and they'd hear the boots, you know, those Nazi marching boots come down their wood hallway. If you were in England, like my interviewee, your baby brother would have been born in the subway, because in England, the Germans were bombing every night, and the word blockbuster is the name of a bomb that takes out a whole block. So you pack up your pillow and your blankie and you go into the subway. If you were German, oh my gosh, if you were a boy, you'd go off to war. I don't care if you're only 9 or 10, Hitler Youth. And then if you're a girl, you go to the ammunition factory and you make ammunition. So you get bombed twice a day. And I could just go on and on and on. What was happening to kids of World War II era. So because of where I was, I feel like I have an obligation. And you know, if you didn't know who I was, and you're just going to hear someone from World War II who was a child is going to be speaking to you. And I started off with, I carried a gas mask to school. I had invasion money in my pocket. I had bomb shelters. I couldn't leave my house at night. I didn't go to school. Couldn't use the phone, and had to sit in the dark. What country am I from? Well, what you see right now is the country that I was from. The, let's see. All right, over on the left side of your screen, you see Ford Island.
Right here.
Ford Island is a military base. It's still a military base. In fact, everything in that picture right now, in both pictures, is the military base. So where the D in island is, okay, take your camera a little bit, or arrow a little bit to the right. Right there. Do you see me waving at you?
Oh, that's you right there.
That's me. And those were, all of us were civilians. We were island families that lived in the middle of America's largest military base. So I could get on my bicycle and I could ride down to the end of that point, and I could look over by where Ford, the word Ford is. And that's where the USS Utah would be anchored. And then next to her were usually our aircraft carriers. Now, Japan had 6. We only had 2. And luckily, on the morning of the bombing, ours were gone because oh, that's right, you're adults. You remember 9/11. When I go to schools, some of the teachers are even too young for 9/11. But like 9/11 wasn't supposed to happen. December 7th wasn't supposed to happen. A pandemic wasn't supposed to happen. And so we're not expecting that we need our aircraft carriers. We sent them to help in the Philippines, and they did need us. So the morning of the 7th, and then you can see almost any morning from where my peninsula juts out there, I could see what was going on, and there'd be airplanes coming over, because see the landing field? Oh, I have to step outside just a second and tell you something about this landing field.
This one right here?
On Ford Island.
Oh, this
one. Yeah,
right
it's
here.
both places.
Yeah.
It's both, but it's actually smaller. It's been enlarged in this newer picture. In this archive picture to the left, guess who landed there, who was from Kansas, who was going to be doing an around the world trip. And actually, that was the last time we saw her.
I know the answer.
Okay. You know, raise your hand. Who?
I know the answer.
Who?
Amelia Earhart.
Yes, she landed right there.
Wow.
And
That's
there's, and what,
interesting.
oh, sorry, calm down. I get so excited about this history, and I want you all to go. And then when you go on that runway, you can look for the marker that said Amelia Earhart landed here.
Wow.
And then we lost her down around Jarvis and the Howard Islands. Okay, back to December 7th time. So on the 7th,
You were over here.
I'm over here. It's Sunday morning. 7:30, mom's in the kitchen getting breakfast. Church, Sunday school's at 9. So we hear airplanes starting to come over. And pretty soon my dad comes running in the kitchen. And he says, what thousands of others. Now, these ships that you all saw anchored, if you can think of a battleship like a skyscraper, there are thousands of men on there. And after 9/11, for you, those of you old enough, I remember watching it rained that weekend, and I remember watching the pictures of the towers burning, and I had this body memory, and I thought, why does this seem so familiar? And it's because the Arizona right there burned and burned and burned and burned. And the reason it burned, and then the reason the towers burned, was it was the same fuel. It was aircraft fuel. The airplanes, you know, that flew into it were full of fuel. And then if you think of the tall towers as ships on the deck, you are good. This is awesome.
So your house is right over here, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
So now the Arizona's over here.
It
the
is.
Utah is right here.
And yes, and there's the
Okay.
runway.
There's the runway.
So similar kinds of things on the burning and all reminding me of that. Let's talk about this map right now. I'll finish up just quickly. I'm in the kitchen. My dad says, the practices seem so real. And that's what, see, this Ford Island had ships all the way around it. And they'd say the same thing. Even when they would see a Japanese airplane coming towards them, they first, one of my interviewees, a Marine on one of these battleships, said, how dare that American pilot come in here like that, and then the torpedo into the water into his ship. So we are not prepared. Oh, weren't prepared for 9/11, weren't prepared for December 7th. Oh my gosh, what we're having to learn now. And, you know, isn't this kind of another Pearl Harbor moment? There's so many similarities. So again, tying back to that day, how you can see the harbor, the arrow is where I lived, and that's now military now.
So you're in your kitchen right here with your dad, your little brother, and your mother. Somewhere right in here.
And so the airplanes are all coming over, because see where it says the USS Utah? First bomb.
Get right there.
First bomb. And the Utah was a target ship. But what they were looking for was our 2 aircraft carriers who'd gone to the Philippines. But each of the men were trained, like there were certain men that bombed the Utah, there were certain men that bombed the Arizona. And if you look closely while we're at the Arizona, see the white, long stand up. Yes, that's a memorial. It goes over the ship. And if you look closely, the ship is still there.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
In the water. It just spans over. So since you're all going to go, and if you then you're going back, and you're going to stand on that memorial and you're going to look down, you're going to see the ship. And this is what else you're going to see. Oil.
Mm-hmm.
The oil. It will never run out. And it just comes to the surface. And then when the sun hits it, it does these prisms of colors. So again, back to where I lived, that was the only occupied neighborhoods.
Right here.
So what you see, this is a fairly recent picture because the Missouri's there, and
Mm-hmm.
she's only been there about 10 years. Oh, and then you have some skyscrapers in the back.
Right.
That's why I had a front row seat. If I was at Waikiki Beach, or if I was at Honolulu or over at the North Shore, I would have missed it. So again, that's why I so want you all to know what this is and to go there. The other awesome thing we need to look at here is, look at the Mighty Mo. Oh gosh. Okay, raise your hand. Who was the president at the beginning of the war? Who made the announcement to Congress and asked for a vote to go to war? And this date will live in infamy. Okay.
Roosevelt. Franklin
All
Roosevelt.
right. And then what happens? It's now exactly almost to the day 75 years ago. Who's president?
75 years? I mean, today?
75. Because Roosevelt dies.
Yes.
So his vice president,
Truman.
and I used to make all the kids, I'd lock the door. And I'd say, he's the only president from Missouri.
Yes, Truman.
Yes. Okay, I can unlock the door. You'd be surprised who I get. I say, you're from Missouri. He lived in Independence. Okay, good. Truman. So, oh my gosh, what Truman had the decisions he had to make.
Mm-hmm.
He actually brought the end of the war, World War II. It had been going on since 41. We're now at 45. Millions have been killed. And so battleships are named after states. Well, we have the Arizona right here. She's sitting on the bottom of Pearl Harbor. We have the Utah over there. I'm really sad about her. She's called the Forgotten Memorial because she's laying on her side. And there's like a palm tree growing out of her, and people don't go visit her.
So Dorinda, so
Yes.
so when you were in the kitchen with your
Yes.
father and he comes through and he says, oh my gosh, what happened to you and what happened to your family at the moment you realized something bad was happening? What is a 6-year-old little girl? What happened to you?
My dad grabs my baby brother out of his crib.
How old was
And,
he?
2.
2.
And he had the nightmares, and he slept through pretty much the whole thing. And I only now understand that after interviewing all those kids from around the world. At 2 years old, he did not have language, and he couldn't understand why we're running and why is everybody scared. And
you ran out of your house?
And my dad and a whole family got put into the car.
And then where did you go?
So if you would follow, all the way up the peninsula and keep going to where all that green area is. At that time, and it still pretty much has not been developed, those were just sugarcane fields.
This is sugarcane right here.
There. Come back. Kind of behind it, right there.
Okay.
And so, what a perfect view. Like, we could look down and we could see the oily black smoke and fire coming up. And
so this is
there's my baby brother.
okay. So you went there. So this is your mom and your dad, and he's from Missouri, and she's from Hawaii,
and my dad's from Missouri.
Yeah.
And so
this is you.
How I ended up in Cherry Blossom Festival country. And yes, and actually, this is exactly the age from the picture.
I'm trying to find the screen with the masks. Hang on. I don't remember which slide it is, so hang on. Oh, look at you there with the
with our gas mask. And look, that mask is only 2. It's almost as big as he is.
That's right. And I'm trying to find, I don't have that picture. You didn't send me that picture. But anyway, what I wanted to get to is, hang on. Where is it again? Where's the picture of you guys? Hang on. I can't find it. I don't know which number it is. There we go.
That one is taken in front of our house. That's the screen door. My dad went almost pushing through, and I'm right behind him. And you can't, I have another picture that shows it better, but while we're here, in the dark corner, go all the way to the left, stop right there. If the light was better here, what you would see is a bomb casing.
You have that right here.
There it is. That was actually from the bombs, and it got left over in our yard because it was safe, and we used it for a door stop.
So describe to me, so you're thrown in this car, and is it bombing, or is there noise all around you as you're trying to get
There's noise, and there's smells, and
do you see the planes?
Smoke. Yes. In the front, right here, going down those stairs, down, and standing right there, my dad and I looked just barely above our trees and barely above our house. And the torpedo bombers were at their last lowest altitude, because you saw how close the ships were.
Right.
And so you could see the torpedoes under the bottom. And then you know, when they would bank, you could see the goggles on their eyes. That's how close they were.
Wow. So you got in the car, and you
go up here to the screen space, and
And so and what did you do? He just parked the car?
We did. We hid the car in the sugarcane field.
Thinking that nobody would bomb a sugarcane field. Is that the thought?
Right.
That's interesting.
You couldn't see us.
So how did he have this already as a plan? Or did he just instinctively just got in the car and drove to the sugarcane field?
Pearl Harbor wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh.
A pandemic wasn't supposed to happen. 9/11 wasn't supposed to happen.
So how long did you stay in the car?
The kids, all my friends came up, and we just played.
All your neighborhood went to the same place.
The whole all those that's military housing now.
So everybody said, "Hey, come on, let's go to the sugarcane field." And
we were scared. We had to run away.
Yeah.
And then when we tried to go back home, they wouldn't let us, because that area would have had shrapnel and live ammunition and all. So we're up here in that sugarcane field, and my dad's twisting the car radio how I wished we had the, it's like, oh, it's the Japanese, it's 300, and there was no information. So the car radio says, this is the real McCoy. Medical, get to the nearest hospital. Military, report to your base immediately. The rest of you, do not leave your house. Do not use the phone.
Wow.
You can't call your grandma and see if she's okay. We need the phone for emergencies. So the kids, we're just moving around. And then because we've got up there about 9 or 10 in the morning. So about 2 in the afternoon, the announcer comes back on, and it's announcing our governor. And our governor, again, says, military, you needed to be at your base, and all medical, report. First responders get to the hospitals. Now, for the rest of you, I am now placing you under martial law. And so that means our little police department in our village is not in charge, that the military is now in charge. You may not leave your house, as I said, you may not use the telephone, you may not turn on lights at night.
That's worse than what we have now. We can at least turn on the lights.
You may not, because if the Japanese or anybody was coming back to bomb us, lights out in an ocean sign, for miles. So completely, no street lights, no lights anywhere. So pretty soon, it didn't take too long before my dad and everybody else's dad got black paint, and we're painting our windows black. But until then, I would take a flashlight and I'd go sit in the closet and read that way. And then I'd pull my radio in there and I'd listen to Lux Radio Theater.
So how long
Anyway,
was the sugarcane film?
So it's now, the sun's going down. And I said, okay, let's.
Did you not have anything to eat? All day? No, nothing to eat all day or drink.
No, because we're going home. Yeah, we're going, there's plenty to eat at home. Gosh, yeah. So we're getting ready to go home, and here comes the military police. And I want to go home and get my dog. I asked him, the military police says, none of you are going home. It's too dangerous. We have to clear that area, make sure it's safe. So, it's like a police crossing, you cannot go in. So what we're going to do is take you over to the next town, which is a town that does sugarcane processing. And
which direction did you go? Over
it would be on the screen. It's going to be to the left.
Over this way.
Yes. Yep. And I love this picture that you've gotten. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to tell you so many other things. I'll save it for another time. Okay, where the arrow is, it is where we stay that night. And no, the police officer said I couldn't go home and get Hula Girl. So we go.
So your dog was left home alone.
Yeah.
Are you in a hotel or are you in your car?
The village there, they processed sugarcane. So the people worked in the sugar plantation, and they put us up in their community center.
Oh.
And they brought us pillows and blankets and food, and made it very comfortable. They took care of us.
Good.
And we had to stay there about a week.
A week?
where we could go back.
And you still didn't have your dog? So now what happened when you actually get to go back? Or did you know at this time what the massive destruction and the deaths at this point this week?
No.
No.
And, you know, kind of even like 9/11, it took a long time to get all of the numbers. No, we had no idea that there would be almost 3,000 just in that one area.
That you could see from your house.
Yeah. Now, there were a few civilians, and the sad part about war is the civilians were not killed by the Japanese. They were killed by American bullets. Sad, sad part of war.
Yeah.
And you don't mean for it to happen, but there are accidents. And if you miss those airplanes, those shells have to come down somewhere.
So you come home and they let you go home. And at this point, you're thinking, oh, good, life will be back to normal.
Of course.
And it wasn't.
And it was fine not to go back to school, you know.
Yeah.
I think most kids say that at first. So we're driving home and I'm hanging out the car window looking for and looking for. We get home, I call her and I can't find her, and I look under the house, and we don't have basements. We just have a crawl space in Hawaii. And so I get up in the big mango tree and I can see it, and I call her, and I'm starting to panic because I think, okay, nobody fed her, and I hope that she ate the last of our breakfast that we didn't finish.
I bet she
that
did.
morning. And she could get water, you know, and I hadn't taught her how to fish. So I pretty much thought, okay, she's gone. So that night, as I say my prayers and I'm there by my bed, I hear her whimpering, and I look under my bed. Of course, she's not under my bed, but that means she has to be under the house part under my bed. So I grabbed my dad with a flashlight, because remember, we can't have any lights on, and go with the flashlight, and we look, and then the green of her eyes glint, and we almost have to pull her out. She was really weak, and but boy, we had sloppy kisses.
She was happy to see you guys.
She was happy. And when I talk to kids about Pearl Harbor today, today, how important those dogs, cats, they're therapy animals and all to, you know, to us. And she meant, you know, so much to us. And I was hoping that kids today had somebody like that.
So,
and yet,
so tell me, so you find the dog.
yes.
How long did it take for life to get back to normal?
It never did. No, this, the women and children, the mothers, the wives of the military and their children had to all leave. And so there was this constant people leaving and leaving, and my dad had thought that maybe my brother and I would come here to Missouri, but Hawaii was all I had known, and so I stayed. But the constantly saying goodbye, because how are we going to feed you? I mean, we talk about, we didn't have toilet paper, but we didn't have toilet paper for 4 years, because the ships that were going to bring, and still today, if there's the threat of a boat strike, toilet paper, I think is always, that's a nice way to relate. Toilet paper is rationed, rice is rationed, and you're gonna laugh at this, Spam. Spam, we grew addicted to Spam after the military pulled out and that we'd had no meat. And, you know, just on the news today, we're starting to talk about that.
So what was your father's job?
My father worked for the post office.
Oh, so he had to stay.
Oh, anybody could leave who wanted to. The military were ordered.
Right.
So
But,
we were civilians.
right. But did your mother and brother leave?
No, we didn't leave.
You all stayed. You all stayed.
We all stayed. In fact, we stayed in that house till I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And we left kicking and screaming. We did not want to leave. And the Navy made us leave.
Okay.
They didn't want, and I understand, they didn't want civilians living in the middle of America's largest military base.
Right. So well, to wrap this up, this is an oral history lesson on World War II and a live story from you. You lived this. You were 6 years old on the ground when Pearl Harbor landed in your backyard. And it's with you still today. And you're educating people. And now we're trying to relate it to what we're going through now. Is that fair to relate it to what we're doing now? Are there bits and pieces?
There's certainly bits and pieces. It was a croptolic. I can't pronounce it or probably spell it either. What happened? You know, you said, did life go back to normal? No, there's barbed wire everywhere. Finally, we would just move the barbed wire over and we'd go swimming anyway and hang our towels on it. Sitting in the dark, rationing, there's no meat, no, we don't know what's going to happen, you know, to our food situation. The school part, we couldn't go back to school till we had to carry our gas masks. So we had to have those handed out. And from 2 years old and up, you carried those.
The gas mask again.
And
I think it was this one. No, this one.
Oh, that was a scene of the people leaving the islands and the rationing.
Still trying to, oh, there, the gas mask. Right.
Yes. And you know,
scary.
when people see that today, I'll ask a student, what do you think that bag is? And they'll say, I don't know, did you carry your water, your lunch, books? And I'll say, no, it was my gas mask. And we carried it everywhere.
Do you have a picture of that on your website, the gas mask?
I am not sure if I do. Again, if you go to Pearl Harbor, there's a picture of my brother and me with our masks on. It's life-size. So I want all of you adults and kids, take your picture. I want a selfie. I want you to send it to me so I know that you got to go. So what you have on the screen right now is my book full of the pictures, some of which you saw today. And then Pearl Harbor wanted me to do a younger version because there's so many families that go. So that's just my story in a younger form. And then one more thing as we kind of, oh gosh, I do have to, we won't talk about, come back up. World War II, of course, is what I write about. At some point, I wish that this story would be told more. This is how Mexico helped us in World War II.
Oh, really?
And I would, yes, that's what everybody says. I bet President Trump would say, really? They did, they loaned us an Air Force. They loaned us their Air Force. And it's the only time in American history that airplane behind them has the insignia of the United States, and on the tail, it has the red, green, and white stripes of the flag of Mexico.
Wow.
Only time we've ever put a foreign nation's symbol on our planes. And yes, maybe we'll end with the Pearl Harbor Warriors. It's such a perfect, it's right below it. this was a Mark Twain book a few years back, and the students and librarians over the summer picked their favorite books, and I was pleased that this one was one of the ones picked for our state. And the other reason I'm so pleased to talk about this is the story of hatred becoming friendship. You know, here to the left is the USS West Virginia. It was just up from the Arizona. It sunk. It took 6 torpedoes and it sunk. And the American Marine hated the Japanese. It was killing him. And eventually he had to come to the point in his life. So it's the story of how they come, and it's really how the power of love overcomes the love of power, because our nations are fighting each other, and it's all over power. We want your country. So in this book, at the end, the Missouri now sits at Pearl Harbor. And so Truman brings World War II to its end. This is its 75th anniversary year. On September 2nd, on the USS Missouri, the recognition of that will take place. And for us Missourians, so awesome to have the Arizona and the Missouri like bookends where the war started, and the mighty Mo. The treaty was signed in Tokyo.
Yes.
And then it was decommissioned and it was put in mothballs up in Bremerton, Washington. And then it was going to be sold for scrap. And a group of history-loving people said, how can you do that? How can you do that? So they got together, raised the money, and they towed it by tugs and pushed it from Washington State to Hawaii. And that's where you're going to stand today too when you go. And you can stand over the seal, it's bronze, and it says, over this spot, September the 2nd, 1945, Tokyo Bay, the surrender document to end World War II was signed right here.
That is so awesome. Well, I thank you so much. Our time is about up, and we want to thank everyone for watching and encourage you to stay connected to the Cherry Blossom Festival Facebook page, which is Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival in Marshville, Missouri. There you'll find more panels and interviews representing the best of American history. And we hope to see you in Marshville next year for the 15th annual Cherry Blossom Festival. I am so sad that I didn't get to see you in person this year, because we were going to be on the panel, live panel, like we were last year. But your story is so fabulous. I can't thank you enough for the education to the young children. I have a young team of World War II experts, and it's really hard to explain World War II, and you do it so beautifully. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. And if I can appreciate anything, it's you live through it and you keep living through it so that people don't forget. And that's a gift that you're giving everyone. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Mahalo for this opportunity, and virtual hugs this time. And aloha till next time. A hui ho means aloha until we meet again. And spread aloha, not corona.
Well, thank you so much. And well, we look forward to seeing the video on with all the other representatives who are going to be online for the online version of the Cherry Blossom Festival. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
In closing, we'd like to thank all of you again for watching, and we'd like to encourage you to stay connected to the Cherry Blossom Festival through our Facebook page and website. Our Facebook page is Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival in Marshfield, Mo, and our website is cherryblossomfest.com. There you'll find more panels and interviews and pictures representing the best of American history. And we hope to see all of you here in Marshfield next year as we celebrate the 15th Cherry Blossom Festival.